Dangerous place right now. And again, I tell the Iranian leaders, you better not start shooting because we'll start shooting too.
That was President Trump's threat to Iran's leaders today after the 13th straight night of anti-government protests across the country. Those protesters in Iran's southeast were heard today chanting, quote, "Death to the dictator." In the capital of Tehran, massive crowds have taken to the streets where demonstrators have been blocking the roads and setting fires, as Iranian officials have now in turn cut off internet access and phone lines, leaving the country largely cut off from the outside world. Iranian state media is reporting that the Revolutionary Guard is warning protesters of, quote, retaliation. My source tonight is CNN's Fareed Zakaria, host of Fareed Zakaria GPS every Sunday here on CNN. And Fareed, it's great to have you because I want to know what you make of these 13 days of protests. It's obviously impossible to ignore, to see how much it's growing. What is your sense from what we can see and what we do know of what we're seeing play out in Iran tonight?
Caitlin, ever since the Iranian Revolution, there have been many protests, and there have been many very widespread protests. The regime is very good at tamping down these protests, using brutal repression, using forms of patronage. But all that said, I do think this one seems different, and it does feel like the regime is at a turning point. And the reason for that is conditions in Iran are terrible. The military has been devastated. The economy is devastated. And also, you have the reality that President Trump has now issued a kind of warning, which means the regime has to be careful of the kind of crackdowns they do, which they've tended to do in the past with abandon. So you put all that together, and it does feel like either they are going to go down a path of really extraordinary repression. Maybe they do it in a way that isn't as easy to televise, but that will still, that will be something the population will see, or they will have to give in some way. But it doesn't feel like this is going to get diffused very easily.
So how does the president factor into all this? Because, I mean, obviously you saw his threats today. If they start shooting the protesters, the United States is going to start shooting. I saw the Supreme Leader today was telling Trump he should focus on his own country instead. But how do they hear the threats from the president of the United States?
Oh, I think they take them seriously because, the president of the United States is the leader of the most powerful military in the world, and a military that showed Iran that it can extend its reach right into Iran, with its most prized possessions, its nuclear program. And I think that, look, the regime has always used this mixture of patronage and repression. Patronage for rural communities, more religiously minded people. They have had a base of support, not a majority, but some kind of base. And then brutal repression every time there is some kind of protest, every time there is some kind of dissent, and that repression is very substantial. And even if there are liberals within their own ranks, they repress them. Remember the Green Movement. This is a regime that is very skilled at repression, because in a sense they came to power through revolution, Caitlin. They know they're not going to let another revolution take place on their hands. But this time it just feels like the economic conditions are bad. The regime is broken militarily. They face the Trump threat. They face an Israeli threat. It's This is looking like a perfect storm that Iran is going to find it very hard to navigate through.
One is we're watching them try to navigate through it. The son of the former Shah, who was overthrown in 1979 during that revolution, he's been thanking the president. He says that he's promising to hold the regime to account. And I know protesters were heard there chanting for his return. I want to know, do you think that's realistic, or, given your extensive experience in this area, how do you view that?
It's difficult to imagine the return of a monarchy, but I think Reza Shah, the man you're talking about, whom I know, is a very decent man who has often said that he would imagine a purely constitutional role. And is it conceivable that he could play some part like that, like the Spanish monarch did when democracy came back to Spain, where he kind of helped facilitate a transition to democracy, it's absolutely possible. I think that the truth is the Iranian people have lived through one of the great totalitarian nightmares of the 20th century, now into the 21st century. And so there's probably a great longing for change. But I do want to emphasize, Caitlin, the regime has power, has money, has guns, and has shown itself unwilling, quite willing to use them. So I don't think they're going to go down without a fight. That's my gut.
Well, Fareed Zakaria, we'll trust your gut on this, and obviously be watching to see your coverage this Sunday here. Fareed Zakaria, GPS, at 10 a.m. Eastern. And thank you for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And up next here, weeks after the Justice Department has blown through that deadline to release all the Epstein files in its possession, I'm going to speak with a lawmaker who has a new plan to force the Justice Department to do just that.